Hello everyone and welcome to All Things Watched. In this video we are going to talk about the brand new movie Dune Part 2, which essentially picks up pretty well right where Part 1 left off, like literally maybe the exact same day. And of course this movie has Timothée Chalamet, reprising his role as Paul, I believe his last name is pronounced as Atreides or something, or Atreides or something like that. And of course you have Zendaya returning as Johnny, and a bunch of other great actors, Dave Bautista, Florence Pugh, Josh Brolin, Rebecca Ferguson, Javier Bardem, as I believe how you pronounce his name, and so basically everybody that you can think of in Hollywood is in this movie, which is both good and bad for me, because I really like the fact that the movie is chock full of great actors, but then at the same time I feel like there's some actors that get to shine more than others, and then some actors that don't get to shine as much as others, which is probably one of the biggest complaints that I would have about this movie, is that I love Rebecca Ferguson, and in this Dune franchise she portrays a character known as Jessica, Jessica is her name. I got the cast up there on my TV so I can see what it is, but I believe that, I kind of wish that we got a little bit more of her. Also, it's sort of the same with Dave Bautista. I feel like he had a little bit more to work with in Part 1. I think, if I can remember back when, I probably should have watched Part 1 before watching Part 2 again, but either way, there were some actors that I wish that we had have gotten a little bit more of, but in terms of the actual villain and whatnot, I did think the villain was kind of intimidating, but still not like to the point where it's crazy, but it was fun to see Timothée Chalamet continuing the story as Paul, trying to balance a little bit sort of between reality and then this sort of messianic religious sort of figure that some of the characters here sort of make him or raise him up to be. So I feel like this movie did a really good job at forcing him to sort of balance, is he believable as a leader, is he actually a leader, is this some form of destiny or prophecy, or is he just a normal man like everybody else? Zendaya, of course, plays, I'm not sure if you pronounce it as Shani or Chani, or Hani, and but either way she portrays this character, and I felt like she was really very grounded. She was the more grounded character. She really liked Paul, and she really follows him and believes in him, but not on that messianic religious way. She actually is sort of opposed to the to the whole Messiah complex, and she looks at him more as a man, and so I really like that chemistry between them. In terms of visuals, just like the first movie, this was visually stunning. I'd be very surprised if Dune Part 2 doesn't win some form of award for visual effects, or for special CGI, or whatever that award is, at the end of the year when they give it the awards. I wouldn't be surprised if it's nominated for best visuals. But in terms of the actual story itself, I still didn't really fall in love with it. I was hoping, to love it, in a way that was like mind-blowing, but I still, neither Part 1 or Part 2 still has really gotten me to that point where I'm like, yes, this is it. I will give credit when credit's due, though. Dune Part 2 does have a lot more action than Part 1, so I feel like it wasn't as boring, but it was still really long, if that makes sense. I felt like Part 1 was really long, and it was sometimes maybe even a little bit boring, whereas Part 2 I feel like wasn't as boring, but still very long, and I did find myself looking at the clock a couple times. But I will say, like I said before, with the visuals and the special effects, it is stunning, and I really, really appreciated that. But I definitely wish that we could have seen more Rebecca Ferguson. I would have loved to see her character a little bit more in this movie, and even Dave Bautista's character a little bit. I would have loved to see that a little more. This movie really focuses on Paul and and his character, and Timothée Chalamet. He's in almost every scene, not literally every scene, but he's a majority of this movie. They really focus on him, and sort of his rise and him stepping into this new world, so to speak. He's trying to learn the way of these sand people, which was really cool. There were a lot of really cool sequences that he had, and some of the battle scenes with these sand people were really cool. The way and the style that they fight, sometimes they're very stealthy. You don't really know where they're to, and they just kind of pop up out of nowhere. And then, of course, when he was trying to learn the ways of the sand and sort of, you know, almost learn to feel the desert, so to speak, which is something that you'll see literally right at the very beginning of the movie. They sort of send him off, and they're kind of like, well, you know, you just go to this certain location and camp out, so to speak, and, you know, they're trying to make him get this feel for their culture and for their ways, and get a feel for the desert. So I really like those little parts of it. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. Like I said, I really thought the action was much more action in this movie, which did make me feel less bored, but I still felt the length of the movie. So it was less boring but still long, whereas the first movie I felt was long and also a little bit boring. This one is more hands-on, more action, and all that kind of cool stuff. But once again, it's not, you know, this is not going to be the next Matrix or the next Star Wars, at least for me. And all these things are subjective. I hope you see this movie and absolutely love it. For me, I really liked it, but I didn't love it. And obviously I will go see the third one if there's, I'm sure there's going to be a part 3, maybe even a part 4 or 5 if it keeps bringing in movies. But you know, it's still worth seeing just visually. Still some of the most realistic visual effects I think I've seen in any movie, and some really cool sequences, but it still didn't quite wow me like I was hoping. I hope that if they do a part 3, or when they do the part 3, I hope it's a little shorter, maybe keep it at like 2 hours or even like an hour and a half. Well, maybe an hour and a half it would be too short, but maybe, you know, maybe a little bit more closer around the 2-hour mark. And I'll be really curious about exploring different factions and different characters as well in this world, in this lore, and all that good stuff. But all in all, I still had a great time, and I would still recommend you see it, even in IMAX if you can. I'm a little bit late getting this review out, but I'm behind on a lot of reviews. But either way, I did really enjoy this movie. I just haven't, it still hasn't quite grasped me to being, you know, this is my top 10 favorite franchise. It's not, but I still had a great time. So let me know in the comment section below if you've seen this movie, and if you'd like to tell me why or why not. If you like this video, click the subscribe button, and until the next one, take care.